Welcome to John Fallon's Indie Film NYC podcast, where we are merging the art and business of independent filmmaking. I'm your host, John Fallon. So on this episode of the podcast, I spoke with director and producer Cindy Baer about her new feature film, Odd Brodsky, and her career in filmmaking. Cindy grew up in Boston, and when she decided she wanted to be in the film business, she picked up and moved across the country to LA. Realizing that she needed to make money while she was working on breaking in as an actress, she started a successful business performing for children's parties as a clown. After running that business for a time, she decided to dive back into filmmaking, but this time more in the producing and directing arena. On her first big project, she directed a film that was written by a 13-year-old girl and almost by accident ended up producing and distributing the film in a similar way that many micro-budget films are shot today. Through her experience with that feature film and a handful of short films with successful runs on the National Film Festival circuit, she started to develop a very personal film that would end up becoming Odd Brodsky. Odd Brodsky is a touching film that reaches well beyond the scope of what the budget is. It has had a successful run in film festivals and is about to be released on VOD. I'll have the trailer available on the show page at indiefilmnyc.com/IFNYC019. So without further ado, I'll let Cindy tell you in her own words what makes Odd Brodsky so special and a fun film to watch. I want to welcome Cindy Baer to the podcast today so we can talk about her amazing film, Odd Brodsky, and the rest of her career.
It's nice to meet you, John. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
So tell me a little bit about how you got started in the business. What's your background?
Well, I'm originally from Boston, and I live in Los Angeles now. I've actually been here for quite a while. When I was young, I wanted to be an actress. That was sort of my creative outlet. And I always knew that once I was old enough, I'd move out here to California because, frankly, it was just so cold in Boston. And so I did. I moved to California when I was 22. And I actually saved, my big goal was I was going to have a lot of money saved in the bank so that when I got here, I could just focus full-time on my acting career because I think so many people, we all get bogged down because we have to pay our bills and make a living. So that was my big goal. So once I had enough money saved to be able to live for a year, I would go to California. So I did that. I worked like 3 jobs, and I finally did it. And then once I got here, I realized, oh, wow, this is going to take longer than I anticipated, and it's really silly to just go through all my savings. So I ended up getting a job as a children's party performer. We have a lot of those out here in California. I don't know if you have it back there where you are, but people go to birthday parties, actors, and they entertain the kids, whether they're a clown character or a princess or superhero. And so I got into doing that, and I ended up making my own company and hiring all my friends to sort of do the same thing on weekends because it's really a great way to earn a living. If you're an actor, you get to hone your skills. It makes you be outgoing, and then you have your weekdays free typically to audition and do all that good stuff. So I had this clown company, and then I ended up selling my clown company. After several years, I just felt like I got sidetracked. My company had become really successful, but it wasn't what I wanted to be doing with my life. So I wanted to get back on track and go back into acting full time, which is why I come to California. So I ended up selling my business. And right about that same time, fate kind of stepped in, as it always does. And I was a Big Sister in the Big Sisters of Los Angeles program. And a few years earlier, I had been matched with a young girl who liked to write. And the neat thing about Big Sisters is they try to pair you with kids that have similar interests. So since she liked to write and I was an actress, they thought, oh, we would be a perfect pair. And we were. And so after a couple of years, things weren't going so well, and my little sister ran away from home. And I thought, oh, wow, she needs something positive in her life to be able to focus on. And I knew that she had been writing a script, a story. So I said to her, hey, Celeste, if you come home, we'll do something with the little story that you were writing. And I was thinking maybe we'd make a short film out of it, and she could star in it, because I really feel like acting gave me a positive outlet and almost probably saved my life as a kid, to be able to express myself and be creative instead of get sucked into all the, negative things in life.
Mm-hmm.
So she came back and she gave me her script, which was all hand-typed, handwritten into a notebook. And I took it from her and I typed it up, and it was actually pretty long. And it sort of blew me away. It was amazing. It was this story called Purgatory House, and it took place in the afterlife. And basically, it was the premise of what would happen if I killed myself, And I'm thinking, oh my God, here's a kid who's thinking about suicide, and maybe it'd be better if I wasn't here. But the story that she was telling was so creative and so symbolic and so just eye-opening, and I thought her words could really speak for a whole generation of other kids that probably related to her, and I think everyone could identify her with her story. And she was telling it was so abstract, almost like an art film, and there were all these different timelines, and this was way back before the democratization of film, the HD revolution, so it still was really hard to make a movie. Because we're talking about 2001. It wasn't like it is now, where anyone can pick up an iPhone and shoot something and call it a movie.
So what did you shoot it on?
Back then, we actually ended up shooting it on a mini DV. Do you remember mini DV?
Oh, sure.
Yep, so we shot it on mini DV and gave it like a film look process to make the interlaced frames de-interlace, so it was more progressive like what you'd see with a film frame, but it still has a video quality to it. But sure. But that being said, it really fit the piece, because I really wanted people to feel what it was like to feel like this girl who wrote it when they saw it, because to me that was what it was all about. So I started as an actress. We ended up making her screenplay into a feature, and this was a year before the movie 13, so I actually think she was the youngest sole-credited feature screenplay writer to have that title. The youngest sole-credited screenplay, yeah, that's it. And, so it was really exciting, and it did really well, and a lot of people identified with it. And so it's funny because I didn't start out to be a director. I was looking for a director, and I just couldn't find anyone that really understood her script in the way that I understood her script, probably because I knew her so well, and I did help her develop it to be longer, too, so that it would be a feature, being careful to kind of keep my adult sensibilities out of it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I couldn't find someone that connected with it, and so my husband, who was not my husband at the time, said, it's crazy that you're interviewing all these other people when you understand it on such a deep level, and you have this acting background. Why don't you do it? And I thought, maybe I will. So it's funny. I just kind of became a director and a producer in a roundabout way. But again, I think it's what happens when you just kind of follow the path that's set in front of you, and you're willing to kind of just be open to what.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you don't have the preconceived notion of what you were most interested in getting that story out there for her.
Right, and for what it could do for her, too, giving her this outlet, because I thought maybe she would fall in love with this whole process, and just being a part of the world and helping people. And it's funny, when you're authentic like that, life just takes over, and good things happen.
And then, since you directed that, what about directing it was something that clicked for you? Why did you say, okay, now that's over, but I want to do more of that?
It's funny, when after that first happened, that wasn't my initial response. In fact, I was thinking, I'm never going to do this again. I'm never going to make another movie. This is crazy. It's so hard, and nobody knows what goes into it. And like every little choice that you make, and it's like magic. Making movies is like magic, and then you put it out there. And granted, we were really lucky, because I think a lot of the critics really got it, but then you get the people, too, that don't, and the general public, because they don't know what goes into it, and it's really heartbreaking. So, so at first I didn't feel that way, and then Matthew, my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, but he said to me, you're going to change your mind, you're going to get the bug, it's going to come around full circle, and it's going to hit you, and sure enough, it did. Once I kind of had some space from it, I really loved it. I mean, to have something that didn't exist and then like you made this. It's such a representation of who you are in the world, and you can't. It's just amazing. I think movies are just magic. They're amazing, and I think that's probably what connected with me the most is the fact that you could just have nothing, and then it's something. And I've always loved photography. So, so it's an extension of that, visually telling a story, with all the other elements that go into it, of course. But, yeah.
And so from that, you moved, you didn't obviously jump right into another feature. It looks like you did a few shorts in between that and Odd Brodsky. Tell me about what you were looking for.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Tell me about what you were looking for with the short films. Like why were you doing them, and what kind of themes were you looking to explore?
Well, it's interesting. I do think things just kind of come up for me just naturally in my path. The way that my first short came about was Purgatory House, the first movie, had gotten a distributor, and it was really taking a long time with the distribution company, and it was a pretty big distributor. It was Image Entertainment, which is one of it's the second largest distributor in North America for DVD and VOD, which was very new then. And I was sort of driving everybody around me crazy because I was so obsessed. I mean, this movie really was my life for a long time. I just felt so passionately about it. And I was kind of driving everyone crazy because that's really all I talked about for quite a bit. I mean, that's not all I talked about, but it was a big focus of my life, and,
Sure.
And I really enjoyed it. But I was driving everybody crazy, and including my husband, who said, you really need to do something else. Why don't you do another project? And I thought, there was he started out as a writer, well, not just a writer, but he used to do a lot of writing. And when he was in school, he did a bunch of short stories that I thought were really brilliant. And there was one called Morbid Curiosity. And I said, you know what, why don't I take Morbid Curiosity and make that into a little short film? My God, after I did a feature, this is going to be so easy just to do a short, comparatively speaking, it's so much smaller in scope. And so I suppose I did things a little backwards, but it was so much fun. Doing the short was so much fun. Basically, it was sort of like a video testimonial. So we just had that one interview type segment where the main character's talking to the camera because she's being interviewed, and then the whole thing I decided I would intersperse with still photos that told the story, but a lot of them have visual effects, which are needed to help too. So it's all told with sort of flashback photographs, and some of them are really funny. And Morbid Curiosity, it's funny, and it was really fun because I used Photoshop, and I did almost all of the effects myself. There is a big effect at the ending that is not a still photo. And Mark Allen Thomas, my amazing visual effects person, he designed that. But otherwise, for the stills, I did all the visual effects myself, and it was so much fun. And I think that's probably what got me going again, because I was reminded of just how much fun it was.
That's great. And so when did you start thinking about doing another feature? When did you start thinking about doing the Odd Brodsky feature?
Odd Brodsky? That was inspired. I think the very first initial concept for that came when we were away at a film festival. I don't remember if it was for Morbid Curiosity or if it was for Purgatory House, but we were staying at this cute little B&B in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and I'm from Massachusetts, so that was really fun. And my husband and I were having this philosophical conversation about just living in Los Angeles, and we know so many people, and they moved out there to do one thing, and they end up doing another thing to pay the bills. And sometimes they're really successful at this other thing, but it's not what they want to be doing. So we were just kind of philosophically talking about that. And then I was also, at the same time, I belonged to this women's group, sort of like a women's empowerment group. We'd been meeting for a long time, once a month. And we would just kind of talk about what's going on in our lives and just be there for each other. And I had this one friend who would come every time we would meet and talk about how much she hated her job. but she was really, really good at her job. And so it was reminding me of this philosophical conversation that Matt and I were talking about. And so it's funny. So there's 5 of us in this group, and one month it was just the 2 of us, my friend and me, that had gone to the meeting. 3 people couldn't attend. And so again, she was talking about how much she hated this job, and it wasn't what she was supposed to be doing with her life. And I said to her, well, you probably have money saved, knowing you. You're so on the ball, and you're so amazing. What would happen if you quit your job, and gave the acting thing a chance? And then if it didn't work out, you could always go back to what you were doing because you're so good at it. Anyone would be happy to hire you. So you have some money saved. Why not give it a chance? Because that's what your soul is telling you to do. And she said, oh, my God, no, I couldn't possibly do that. I need the security, and it's just, that I just couldn't do that. Then the next day she called me up and said, guess what? I quit my job. So I thought, oh, my God, that's amazing. And needless to say, it was a long process, but between now and then, she has found something she is so happy doing that really speaks to her. And, I feel like that's the kind of thing that I know happens, and that's what I wanted to make this movie about. The fact that, maybe there's a reason we have these other callings. Maybe you don't have to settle on doing things that you hate. If you have a calling, what would happen if you listened to that calling and just gave it a shot instead of everything that's always saying all the reasons why you can't do something? What's life about anyway? It's about kind of creating whatever you feel like is calling to you. So those are the initial seeds.
Yeah, no, those are really inspiring roots for a film. So,
thank you.
I think those those are the kinds of things that, as artists, we all struggle with that. I think
Absolutely, and that's what I thought. I thought so many people would be able to relate to that, especially artists, but even people that aren't. I just feel like the older we get, we just kind of get, just tied down sometimes to what we're used to. And really, what would happen if it's fine to be afraid, but what if you were afraid but you still did it? You still went for it. You just make a backup plan, but what if you gave yourself a set amount of time and just tried to do whatever it is that you want to do? Because who's really holding us back anyway? It's ourselves that hold us back.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because this project is a pretty ambitious film. I mean, it's not your typical indie film of one location, 3 actors, small story. It's got quite the scope. So what kind of stipulations did you put on yourself, and then how did this all grow into such a big movie?
It's funny. It's something I'm really proud of, too, so thank you for noticing that and for bringing it up. I think that when Matt and I wrote the screenplay, it's the first feature that we've written together. And when we wrote it, we kind of wrote it, he's a cinematographer by trade, and so we wrote it the way that he thinks that he approaches a movie when he's going to shoot it. And that's, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? So when we originally did the first draft of the script, it was even larger in concept than it is now. It had musical numbers in the middle of it that took place at all 3 studio gates, Paramount, Warner Brothers, all these impossible places. But we're like, you know what? You got to start with what the big picture is. And so we did that. And it had a much bigger budget, too. And then what you do is you just kind of narrow it down as you go. So once you know what your final budget is or what you have to work with, then you think, how can I accomplish the same feel or the same, the same objective with fewer resources or with the resources that we have? So that's sort of how it started, but really, we still kept the same scope in terms of, yeah, you're right. And instead of one location, I think we have 30, and all the music cues, and our cast is gigantic. I think we have 54 speaking roles. So there's all kinds of things that you can do I guess you just start one by one, whether it's, casting and working with the Screen Actors Guild and finding the contract that's going to suit your needs, and the production design, and thinking of all the people that you know, and the crew, and just bringing it all together within your means.
So I'm guessing a lot of that was kind of, I guess developed and decided upon in your pre-production. So how long was your pre-production period, I guess, for this film? Like, how long did it take you to figure out what your budget was and figure out how you're going to kind of modify your vision to fit the resources you had?
Right. Well, the hard prep period was about 2 months. I would say that was, with other people, it was probably about 6 weeks where we actually had all the department heads on and whatnot. But before that, before they came on board, I would say it was probably about 3 months of me working on my own, breaking down the script and the schedule, and kind of figuring out what resources we had. I'm also lucky because I'm really good with resources and getting sponsors and kind of doing tie-ins like that. So I would say, it probably maybe like 4 months of pre-production if you include the stuff I did by myself to kind of get it into the shape that it needed to be in before other people could come on board, and I could maximize what they were going to do in the least amount of time because we did have such a low budget. So, when you don't have a lot of money and you don't have as much help for as long time, and you have to, be even more resourceful with your resources.
The reason I asked that question was because it just shows how, no one's going to care about your film as much as you do. And you've really got to put that, lay that groundwork, and do a lot of the kind of sleepless nights and long days just to get it to a place where you can bring other people on to help you.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So when other people came on, all the blueprints had been laid. I was very specific. I knew exactly what I wanted probably in every single department, and had already even laid the groundwork for maybe like places that we were going to be working with and equipment we'd be using and all that kind of good stuff. So, yeah, absolutely.
And can you tell me a little bit about, you mentioned that you got sponsors for the film or tie-ins. What did that involve? And maybe is there like something other filmmakers can learn by kind of your process?
What I always tell people is, go through your screenplay and think about, is there something in your script that could be a tie-in with another company, or is there something, like what makes your movie special? Like why would people want to be involved with it? And those are the people that become your team. So, in terms of different companies, there are companies that will give you makeup, and you can always, pitch your product to different people that do equipment and whatnot. But really, it's about appealing to them. Like, why would it appeal to somebody? And you have to put a package together and kind of show them, why it's a good tie-in. And there could be a million reasons why it's a good tie-in, whether it's even a direct kind of product tie-in, that you have something you could showcase in your movie, or whether it's equipment that you could use, or even like, for instance, things that you could put in the movie, like pictures and picture frames. Like there's all kinds of little spots that you could place different things, and it's really fun for people. And I mean, we live here in Los Angeles, so we're a little jaded, but I think across the country it's really exciting to be involved with the movie, and there's all kinds of people that think it would be so much fun to be involved in some way. So really it's just about making a list of what you think the opportunities might be, and then figuring out who might be a good fit for that list and just running it by them. And if you don't have a connection with somebody, thinking about people in your circle who might, or maybe a company that does something, and then it's just thinking, being creative and thinking outside of the box, like how could I tie that into what I'm doing? How could this benefit them in some way too that would help us both? So that's usually what I do. I start with just lists.
Is there maybe one or two specific examples you did for your film that you could share?
Well, like in Odd Brodsky, one of the characters is called Camera One, and the entire movie he walks around literally holding a video camera. So it would make sense that we would go to a video camera company or, a camera manufacturer and say, hey, we're showcasing this product in every scene that this character is in. What do you think about that? It seems like it would be a really great tie-in. So that's one example. Also, there's a makeup company, an awesome makeup company called Matte Cosmetics, and oftentimes they will donate makeup to the production at a certain level, like a certain amount of makeup, because we all wear makeup, So so MAC often does that, and then just different individual companies. I think a lot of the people that helped us were individual companies.
Were they giving monetary?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Nope. No money.
All right.
Maybe we could have gotten money if we had like big stars. I don't know. The landscape is just changing so fast right now. But no, I don't think, at least at this level, unless you're a big studio movie with guaranteed like 200 screens or whatnot, I think that would be really difficult.
Okay. Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe somebody else could do it. But I kind of went with my gut, and I try to be realistic on what my goals are.
I still think it's a great way to get filmmakers thinking about other opportunities and ways to even growing your audience that way.
Exactly. And the thing is that it's cross-promotion, too, because later on, when the movie comes out, you can thank them on Twitter and Facebook and all the social media, and maybe they would retweet you, and, if you have some success, then your success is their success as well. So you not only have your own audience, but their audiences as well. So it's just like building your community and building your team. The more people and companies and you can have involved, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if they retweet you one time and they have tens of thousands of followers, then that really helps. Even if it translates into a few hundred sales on like a VOD, that's money.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And I'm all about branding. I always say you need to get your name in front of people. You need to get your name out there. So sometimes, like when I go to places, I'll just stick postcards because I figure if people just see our name, and then when it finally comes out on VOD, they're gonna think, oh, that sounds familiar. That's sort of one of my little things that I do. I don't know if it really works or not, but I like to think it does.
Well, it certainly can't hurt. So tell me a little bit about once the film was completed, you took it out to the festival circuit, and you got a couple mentions in the festivals, I hear.
Yeah, we did really well in the festival circuit. We started off at Mill Valley, which is a really awesome and well-known festival that's up in San Francisco. So we were really lucky to have a send-off there, and they're such great people. And that was kind of crazy because most of the movies they play are really big movies that you always see up for the Oscars at the end of the year. And here's our little movie playing with these heavy hitters. So that was really fun, and they treat you really well, and that was really special. And so, but yeah, we played, I think, 29 film festivals, and we've won 20 festival awards. So it's been quite a run, and it's nice because it lets you figure out who your audience is. The greatest thing for me is after a festival, at almost every festival that I've personally attended, somebody will come up to me after and say, oh, my God, I felt like that movie was a sign. I've been doing this job, and it's sucking my soul. It's just not where my passion is, and I've been debating, should I stay, should I go for it? And they're like, this is speaking just to me, and it's the best feeling when you feel like you connected with somebody. And I think festivals give you that opportunity to figure out who your audience is and to meet other filmmakers and to create a community. But yeah, so I have all kinds of tips if you're interested about like festivals, if that will help your audience at all.
Yeah, that'd be great. Tell me what you've gleaned.
Okay. Well, basically, now more than ever, there's there are so many film festivals, and it's really hard to know, where to spend your money for your entry fees. So first, you probably already know this, but there's all kinds of great websites. It used to be that there was only Without a Box that everybody used, but now there are several other online sites as well. The one I like best is called Film Freeway, which probably a lot of people know about by now, but there's Fest Home and a few others if you Google them. And what these are online submission services, so you can attach your online screener there and a password, and then it's sort of like one-stop shopping. And so it'll list all the different festivals, but don't just blindly submit your movies, because what you really should do is make a plan before you're going to do it. So a lot of the bigger festivals won't play you if you've already given away your premiere. So it goes world premiere, United States premiere, and then there's like West Coast premiere and East Coast premiere, so it goes by region. And then you can do more local premieres like California premiere, New York premiere, and then city premieres, Los Angeles, New York City. And so what you always want to do is tout your premiere. Like, I have this to give you. If I play at your festival, you'll be my blah, blah, blah premiere. And that's appealing. And so I kind of look for referrals and things that have a little prestige that are going to get some press. So you definitely want to start with the bigger festivals first. And then you go out on to the ones that are like the B festivals after the A festival submissions. And, so that's sort of the pecking order. I usually try to find some connection, like, why am I submitting to this film festival? Of course, the first thing you want to do is make sure that they take movies that are like your movies. Like ours is a quirky comedy, so you don't want to make sure you're not submitting it to a horror festival or something that's completely inappropriate, which I've heard stories that people just randomly submit them and they don't check to make sure it would be a good fit. So I always look at what they've played in the past and to see if they have a sensibility that I think they would actually like our movie, because otherwise you're just throwing your submission fee away. Mm-hmm. And then once I do, then I try to figure out from there like what connection I might have to them. So what I do is I made a list of all my actors and where they're originally from. Like, I'm from Boston, and I had another one of my lead actors that was from Wisconsin, and so the thing is, if you play at a city that has some of your cast or crew where they're from, then you can help bring in an audience, and that's always appealing to festivals too, because they want to make sure if they're going to program you that there are going to be people there that are going to come see the movie, especially if it's not an A festival. A festivals usually have, maybe they're attached to a film society with subscribers, so they are lucky and they have an audience that's sort of already built in or access to an audience. But a lot of the B festivals might not have that as much, and so it's a huge help if you're able to go to a city and people that already want to see the movie and you can help them fill the house. And it's good for you too, because it's much better to play with an audience, because it's just going to go off better. People tend to like the movie when there's more of a crowd and that whole communal experience.
Sure.
And then also getting press too. If you're inviting press to come see the movie, then it's better for them to see it, in a full crowd where everybody's laughing, and it's just much more fun. Although nowadays, with all of the online screeners, a lot of times the press will see it by themselves, and not have that communal experience, which is fascinating, because I really think our perception changes when you see something with an audience. But, so that's typically what I do, and then so I'll submit, but then I'll also send a little note to tell them I submitted, just to try to make a little personal connection. And if I have any, little piece of information I can share, I'll do that in a little cover letter and just say, oh, I'm so excited to let you know that we submitted. I hope you like the movie. And then once you get
I'm sorry, let me pause you for a second there. So you'll submit through, say, Film Freeway. You'll submit to their festival page. Let's just use one of the ones that you were in. So the Mill Valley, for instance, Mill Valley Film Festival. So you submit through their Film Freeway portal or whatever, and then you contact them personally outside that portal? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I would typically do if it's not a festival that I know. I do know a lot of festivals at this point, because my first movie played at a lot of film festivals, so I met a lot of people that way. But yes, if it's something I'm not familiar with, or if it's someone that someone has referred me. So say somebody else played at a festival last year, and they're like, oh my God, this festival would be a perfect match for you. Then I'll send them an email and say, so-and-so referred me to you. They said you'd be a perfect match for me. And, so hopefully if they have a good relationship relationship with that person, maybe their recommendation also makes me look good too. So I send a little note, and then once you get in to the festival, it's really important to try to attend the festival because you want to build those relationships and you want to meet other filmmakers and try to get the press that comes with it and, meet your audience. So I have all kinds of trips about traveling, too. What's neat is as you attend festivals and you make friends with people, you kind of end up on the festival circuit together with them because your movies are out at the same time. So oftentimes people invite you to come and stay with them. Like in New York City, I got to stay with some people I actually met when I played in Florida. And, same thing in Chicago. I had met the woman I stayed with for part of my Chicago trip. We had met in San Francisco. And so it's pretty amazing, like, that you meet these people. But a lot of times when you find out you get in, what you can do is you can contact the festival. And first of all, sometimes if you have a feature, they'll actually put you up and pay for your travel. It depends on the festival, but some of them have a budget for that. If they don't, some of them will do something where they have sponsored housing where people in the festival might let you stay with them, like host a filmmaker. And if they don't, you can still ask, hey, do you have anybody there that might have a guest room and they're willing to host a filmmaker? Because otherwise it gets really expensive. And it's so much fun, and you get to meet these people, and they love having filmmakers stay with them. If that's a no-go, then Airbnb has been really good, too. I'm sure you probably know about Airbnb.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Airbnb is a lot less expensive than traditional hotels. And then for plane travel, what I try to do is everything I buy, I use a credit card for so that I can earn miles. And I've been able to travel to so many festivals using my miles, which comes in really handy. And and other people can use their miles. There was this one film festival that I really wanted to attend, and I didn't have enough miles. And so I thought, this is crazy, but I'm going to do it anyway. I put a little message out on Facebook. I don't suppose anybody happens to have any miles they're not using. I know, like, the likelihood of this is like zero. But a friend of mine actually wrote to me and said, you're never going to believe this, but I actually do have miles that I am never going to use, and they're going to be expiring. So if you could use them, I would love for you to use them. I'm not going to use them because I don't fly with that airline anymore. I got a job, and now we exclusively use this other airline, so I'm never going to use these points. So thanks to her, that was enough to get me one way. I think that was to Toronto. And then I used another friend's frequent flyers to do the other half of the trip. And then I lucked out for another trip, too, where United Airlines and U.S. Airways merged. And I didn't even know they were merging. But on the day I went to book my flight, and I had 12,000 miles in one account, and I think I had 13,024 miles in my other account for U.S. Air. And so together they made 25,040 miles. So I made it by 40 miles. It was crazy.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to go to this film festival.
That's great.
Yeah, but I guess my point is if you just kind of put it out there and, talk to other people and say, hey, does anyone have any miles? Hey, does anyone know anyone that wants to host a filmmaker? There's all kinds of ways that you can reduce your costs when you're attending festivals. And the festivals can sometimes help you as well.
No, that's all really good advice. When you are trying to get the festivals to help you, what's the protocol there? Do you, what do you ask, or who do you ask, or what kind of things do you say?
There'll be a liaison that contacts you typically, and they'll tell you right off, like, hey, we're able to provide you with, X amount of hotel nights or a plane fare or a stipend for travel. If they don't say anything, then what I usually write to them is once I hear from them, hey, it's nice to meet you, and then I double check just in case, because sometimes maybe they only do it for a couple of movies, or they don't know because they've allocated something for one thing and they don't know if they're going to have money left over. So I just put it out there. And sometimes they'll say, we might be able to work something out. So it doesn't hurt, again, to ask. And then if they say they don't have the budget, that's when I just kind of offer outside-the-box ideas like, hey, do you think you know anybody there that works for the festival or is a friend of the festival, like a sponsor on your board that might have a guest room, or I wouldn't be there very often. Maybe we could see if we'd be a good match. So I just kind of start reaching out to the person that reaches out to coordinate that stuff. And usually they'll tell you who that is. Usually there's like a hospitality manager.
Oh, that's awesome. That's all really good advice that
Oh,
I'm not
good.
sure everybody knows about. I mean, I've kind of heard a little bit about that, but being somebody who hasn't really hit the festival circuit myself,
Right.
All that stuff is very conceptual to me at this point. So,
right.
another
Thing and another thing that now that I think about it, sometimes when you announce, hey, I'm going to be in Chicago, just by announcing it, you'll have friends, thanks to Facebook. Now we're connected with everybody, right?
Right.
Who will write to you and say, oh, my God, you're coming to Chicago, come stay with me. So,
that's
even
a great
just by
point.
putting it out there, some people might just volunteer, hey, I have a guest room, come stay with me. And I think that's happened to me 4 or 5 times.
Well, that's awesome. That's really great.
Yeah.
I kind of want to wrap up in a little bit, but before we do, I want you to talk a little bit about, what makes Odd Brodsky so special. Like, why? I mean, I not really to pitch the audience to watch your movie, but tell me what they're going to get out of watching your movie. What's special about it? What do you want them to get out of it? And why should they watch it when it comes on VOD?
Well, I think that I think filmmakers will really like it because basically I feel like it tells our story. And I do think our first audience is filmmakers and actors because it's just so specific. Although I do think anyone that's ever been stuck in a job they hated will relate to it as well. Because like I said, I get people that always come up, and a lot of times they're not filmmakers. It'll just be somebody that's just doing something where they just don't have any passion for the job they're doing. But I would say that's probably the biggest thing that I hear, and I think that filmmakers will probably see themselves in there because there's a lot of silly fun that happens, kind of shenanigans, but there's a lot of heart too. And I think in the end, I don't think we really know, what the right answer is, what we're supposed to be doing with our lives, but it's about what makes us happy. And I think when you listen to that voice inside of you, life leads you to the people you're supposed to know and the place that you're going to be, even if it's not what you necessarily thought it was going to be. So what I hope people get out of it is that they go for it, that they stop settling and they think, my God, life is too short. It's just go for it. So that's what I hope that they get out of it.
And tell me a little bit about the musical aspect of the film. Like, how important was that to you? I mean, because I think in American films we don't get a lot of musical numbers.
Right.
Sometimes we'll get them in a sitcom, but it definitely seems like more of a I know like Bollywood is big on musical numbers in their films and things like that. So tell me a little bit about that decision to have so much music in the film.
Well, basically it has a Wes Anderson kind of feel to it. So, and sort of, I guess if I had to pick one movie, it was sort of Rushmore that kind of inspired. There's a lot of list making, and you kind of see like different things that she tries as she's a little girl, the main character. But I think we really liked when we were writing the script, we kind of pictured it with that sort of mandolin feel that took you from scene to scene. So there's a lot of mandolin that kind of takes you through the score that's based on classical pieces that we kind of spruced up a little bit to make more modern. And the musical number is kind of fun because the musical that's in the movie is based on, it's called Hell is Here, and that's actually a parody of Purgatory House, which was my first feature. So there's a lot of things that kind of come around that are kind of like wink, wink, nod, nods to anybody that knows me, like inside jokes. So, so there's a character named Sammy in the movie, which is actually me. So I play a parody of myself, and she's obsessed with this movie, with this movie she made 10 years ago called Hell is Here, and in Odd Brodsky, she's doing a parody of it, of Purgatory House. And the same actor, Jim Hanks, who played our lead in Purgatory House, plays a parody of himself in Odd Brodsky, so in the little musical number. So that's fun. And then we have a musical number in the ending credits. And that's neat, too, even symbolically for me, because in the end credits you kind of catch a glimpse of what this musical number might have been, the musical that Sammy's working on. And symbolically for me, it kind of starts out as this parody of my first movie, but then it's like the second movie kind of comes on and says, hey, it's time to do the next thing. It's time to move on. And so literally the characters from the new movie are kind of pushing the old characters out of the way to make way for the new, and it was really fun having so much music. And then we also have a really neat song that's from Eric Bazillion, who's the Grammy Award-winning artist from the 80s band The Hooters. So his song is in the finale of the movie, and it's an unreleased, never-before-heard song that's absolutely amazing, and it sounds like it could be a Hooters song today. So that was incredible that we were able to get that song as well. But David Gonzalez did an amazing job with our score. And, yeah, I think we had like over 80 music cues in the whole movie, and including some parodies of, like, there's one cue that's a parody of like surf music that's sort of our Tarantino parody of something that happens in the movie a little bit later on. So music definitely plays a big part, and I think it creates the overall feel and cohesiveness. So and that took a long time too to get all the music rights and to get everything created and placed and yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sure that really speaks to the tone of the movie and really sets up everything as far as like just the overall feel.
Right.
So with that, are you pushing Odd Brodsky out of the way yet and thinking about the future? What do you want to do next, or do you know?
Well, Odd Brodsky comes out on VOD. It'll be an iTunes exclusive. November 29th is our release date. So I'm hoping people will go and watch it on iTunes, and it would be amazing if we could make the charts. So that's my first goal. And then after that, we'll go to a wider release, probably about 4 weeks later. And then I have a few things in the works after Odd Brodsky's out in the world. And they both involve sort of, it's another female-centric type movie. But one of them, it's called The Apologist, and it would sort of complete a trilogy about women at different ages in their lives. If you think about it, Purgatory House, my first movie, was about a 14-year-old girl. Odd Brodsky's a woman in her mid-30s, and then The Apologist would be a woman that's maybe in her 50s or 60s, and she goes around apologizing for and healing other people's relationships when she can't really, on behalf of them, and she can't really heal her own. So that's the project that will probably be next, although I have a couple of other things in the works as well. So, but that will certainly be the third in the trilogy, so that'll be really fun.
Oh, that sounds excellent. I can't wait to see how that develops.
Thank you.
So if people want to, obviously, if they're going to watch the film on iTunes on, you said November 29th?
Yep.
And then what if they want to reach out to you, whether they want to just contact you and tell you what a great film you have, or maybe book you for other podcasts, or how can they get in touch with you?
Well, to get in touch with me directly, you could do Cindy at freedreampictures.com. That's FREEDREAM pictures.com. Or we have a Facebook page, too, for Odd Brodsky. And if you send a message, I would probably get it that way. And I actually have a Facebook page, now that I think of it, for Free Dream Pictures as well. So either just simply writing to me there or sending an email is probably the most effective way.
Great. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on today. This has been a really interesting conversation, and I think, your experience can really show some people like what it takes to get a feature film made, and to make such a touching piece that you're looking to make those connections with other people with.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and thanks so much for supporting filmmakers. And I really appreciate that.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode of the podcast. Before I go, I'd like to tell you about some exciting news. John Fallon's Indie Film NYC is now a founding partner in the Kew Gardens Festival of Cinema. The Kew Gardens Festival of Cinema is a film festival that will take place from August 4th to August 13th in the summer of 2017. Submissions are open now, and you can submit on Without a Box, Film Freeway, Fest Home, and Film Festival Life. You can also find more information about the festival at kewgardensfestivalofcinema.com, all one word. Or search Facebook for Kew Gardens Festival of Cinema to like our Facebook page. If you have any questions or comments about the festival, All the links to this information will be on the show page at indiefilmnyc.com/IFNYC019. If you have any questions or comments about the festival or this podcast, then feel free to reach out to me at indiefilmnyc.com/contact, or I'm on Twitter at indiefilmnyc. Thank you, and we will see you next week.